Okay, so let me try to think through. One of the key things that I saw earlier was John Doyle. I think it was a Tim Pool thing. Destiny was on there, and what's her Lauren Chen, and they're all debating. And Destiny was like, yeah, because he wanted to throw in hot atheist take, which of course there are no longer hot atheist takes. Hot atheist takes stopped really about a generation ago, and they're just rehashed. There's just nothing new or interesting about them, because what it is prove it. Show me a pound of glory. That's it. And that could have been done all the time. This is also why the practical magic of the era of the motherhoods of matriarchal society kind of things, that when people want to believe that there was this period of time where there was these greatly awesome things called human societies run by women that people lived in. That was before there was almost anything systematized. So this is one of the key things that really people don't get about like what we really do know about matriarchal societies. They exist before things are systematized. So everything is still a mystery, and that you have to have a certain person come and dance around it in a certain way to make it work correctly. That's the practical magic of the world. That's where atheists end up at. That's the present generation. It's because they have the problem of not going through the process of some type of theological training, even their own. Say that I really got into foundational Buddhist theological training. And because I had considered the idea of becoming a monk or going to a Tibetan medicine program or something like that. And so I just looked into it. I said, so what makes a Tibetan monk a Tibetan monk? And in finding out more and more about that, I learned all these theological concepts that, and there were some of them like the Nirmanakaya, the Dharmakaya, and the Vajrakaya, things, and the differences between those and stuff like that you have to know the terminology. You almost even have to know why such a concept had to develop, such as why is there Kuan Yin Bodhisattva when that just doesn't exist in Buddhism. That it was something that came on later. That's why if, say, you're in Southeastern Asia and your exposure to Buddhism is the school Theravada, the sayings of the fathers, that has a very different type of pantheon than, say, what you would find out of the Chinese diaspora of Buddhism. And you just have to know just the why. It's just, why did it develop like that? Then from there, the theology helps to really get. Then there's a lot of. Then there's certain theological ideas. Were these new ones or old ones? Pith ideas, as a lot of kind of pith teachings, and so, or were they something added on? One of the things that kind of Destiny showed is sort of this thing that you find a lot with Americans who were exposed mostly to Protestant Christianity, end up becoming like internet atheists. Internet atheists that were heavily exposed to Protestant theology, you kind of never know what they think the religion is. And that's the thing, is like with the Orthodox, you ask 10 Orthodox people what a theological concept is, it is the same exact words. This is not the same with Protestants. It's somewhat the same with Catholics if they know the term. So it's one of these things that you end up with people then hearing like what he was saying, and they're kind of struck with like there's like a whole stack of odd or even incorrect things going on. So one of these really is this idea of it's just a set of rules so you can't have fun, which is sex outside of marriage, sex with lots of people, and enjoying your appetites. This is all that has always been relatively taboo or kept in check. It is for the men who he couldn't do that. In a world run by women, he would be like just set to work. He doesn't get. Yeah, he doesn't. He really doesn't get it. Like, he would just be set to work, and Mr. Tate would allow him what Mr. Tate allows him. You know, he would answer to his master, and he doesn't get like what a cruel world the matriarchal world was, with cruel deities that were horrible, and the only way you got on the side of the ancient deities is by fooling them or besting them in some match if they came into corporeal form. The ancient deities were terrible. They were never nice to humans. They tortured humans. They tortured each other. These stories are kind of fascinating in their brutality universally. Like, the Bible has sort of nothing in brutality-wise. The Bible has nothing on almost any like anthropological survey of non-biblical deities. You end up finding these deities that are just awful, and that it's almost even hard to consider, like, so yeah, especially the thing with deities chopping each other up into tiny pieces and scattering each other around, and that's in matriarchy. That's the story you go to sleep with, and no one will face that. We know that. We actually know that. We know that about those myths, and so this idea of like a deity that feeds the poor because they could make fish and bread appear, and that they're the only source of such kinds of magic, that anything else is some kind of trickery by a wide variety of evil spirits. And it's very important that concept, because it took the power out of magic. That's one of the things about like the Christian theology, because of its the Greek period in the first like 700 to 1,000 years systematized the theology. So there was a way of teaching it, a way of understanding it. Terminology was relatively universalized, it wasn't universalized, but relatively so. So there's Orthodox churches that have no actual word in their theological language for Mother of God. The Greeks have this word, but like say, I forget, it's like the ancient Eastern Assyrian church doesn't. So there's no Syriac word for this. So the apostles that founded that bishopric never had a word for that, so that was never agreed upon by them, and so that is the heart of the Christian faith in what like where the people who've always been in the area, the Orthodox, they don't even all agree with each other on every detail. This is what you find with like Tibetan Buddhism and the five hats, the different hat sects. Taoism has the same thing. You don't mix practices of various Taoist sects. Like you don't mix Erme with Wudong, and You do it the way that you were taught, and it's because that's the wisdom tradition, and that's so that aspect is something universal. This wisdom tradition, that the memory of your elders, you ask your elders important questions so that they can provide to you a framework in which to see, to sort of view knowledge. Like wisdom and knowledge have an interesting relationship in this regard, because wisdom is the memory, the wisdom tradition is the memory of that tradition. Like, it's what comes from the people who practice it on to the next generation. Knowledge is constantly discovered and clarified, and it's sort of, you almost are always gaining new knowledge, where wisdom is old and it has to be preserved. And so this is why, like, when you find, like, the atheists tried to have atheism plus, that becomes the social justice warrior movement, which then becomes the wokies and the new socialists. And so Destiny wants there to be an ethics and a morality for the atheists, and it's like, bro, you guys keep trying this and it keeps going horribly wrong. That is why you have the traditional conservative thing happening again. Because and so here's one of the things that really I actually had to reflect upon over and over again. You could look at the period of time that the most important Nobel discoveries were made. Once you look back through the early times of the Nobel Award, you're finding people that actually were not just religious. These were people who were incredibly verbose about theology. Like, some of these Nobel laureates and Nobel Prize winners in physics, like physics, engineering, chemistry, such like. They end up being these people who have incredible writings on theology and the Christian faith. And we're often to them, the created world and this idea of sort of this unseen world that we interact with now and then, but the idea is that its terrors are held back, by because the world has been redeemed, and the whole world. And that there's these terrible spirits that would be unlocked. And so really there's many people who discussed what modern occultism has a lot to do with, are people thinking of unlocking locked up spirits. This is not strange. Like, leave it in the comments. I'm sure you've heard. There's a number of relatively famous accounts now of various experiments in the realm of the occult that sound stupid, but we even find that people write about it in cinema, because there really was this idea that there's some realm from which you can unlock the powerful spirits. So, yeah, and it's the way humans behave. It's something about us. We will go back to that over and over again. Like, BLM was based off of that idea. Getting these angry spirits of evil people who were killed by the police or something, and or whatever, and that you should burn things down, chanting their name, and that comes out of black magic. That's not unknown. They even said they practiced magic. They were talking about their spiritual beliefs. So what motivates humans to do things is often just as important as some highfalutin ideas about, oh, well, show me a pound of glory. That's not even clever anymore. It's because at some point it has to be like, do you not understand that there's people that you can almost guess that they think certain things are right or wrong, like ahead of time. You could guess it. Do you know why? Well, it's because if you think truth is relative, you are very likely somebody who will think all kinds of things that are morally reprehensible are okay. he doesn't understand that this keeps happening for us. And that's somebody like Lauren Chen. She's a part of a whole world of people that we weren't Bible thumpers. Often, I remember atheism turning into atheism plus. I was there. And so it's one of these things I'm like, no, you all aren't getting that. No, there's really there's something going on about the way humans are. You guys don't have it dialed in at all on the atheist left in any way, shape, or form. Like what humans are, how they behave. And then it got into like, he's talking about, oh, we got to go beyond this, turning to the Bible and it's like, no. The Bible just is supposed to just be a book of stories that describes how humans are. But also, you need it elaborated on. Like, you need to be in a wisdom tradition that somebody can give you people don't get that Jacob and Esau, there's a really important, that's one of the many stories of brothers. And that's the whole thing behind it. It's most people understand this if they have two male siblings in their family or as children, and that it describes a pattern of behaviors, and also there becomes a very larger import to the way the words are structured. The names are actually written out in such a way that they have a meaning to them, like the name Zoe in Greek myth. There's a reason why Zoe is used instead of Eve, and it's because they're the same word, life, hava. But so there's a wisdom tradition that if you don't have access to it, a lot of what you would get out of quote-unquote scriptures wouldn't make sense. This is why a lot of the kind of armchair Taoism, somebody like me who is an armchair more Buddhologist than a Buddhist, there's things that you have to learn from that is really from mouth to ear. And and then there's this, and beyond that, a living tradition. The living tradition in Christianity, there's been there's been writings for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years on all kinds of little things. And so some of these, the most profound are the things that are the writings about the human psyche and the human soul. Most people outside of pretty hardcore Catholics and Orthodox ever read these kind of works. They're even cautioned against because of people being mystical wackadoos. So like, say the book, The Philokalia, a bunch of people I bet will put in the comments, you have to be very careful with the Philokalia. And it's because the Philokalia tells you a lot about the human psyche. It's just fascinating. It's what really wise people who meditate a lot can tell you about the way the mind works and the human psyche works. And also there's this idea too that it was sort of like Christianity appeared and then beat everybody up and burned all the temples down and told all the women stop fucking or something and then won. And that's not really what happened. It was why it spread all the way to Tang Dynasty, China, out of conversion. And so it was, not only did it get all the way to Western Africa through conversion, into Persia, but all the way into China as well through conversion. They didn't have the numbers to form armies at that time. So that's the thing about people not getting this. Followed the Alexandrian world. Like, it followed where Alexander went and beyond, because it presented itself through the argumentation method of the Greeks. And most references to scriptures were references that had to do with prophecy, and most of that would not have made any sense to anybody outside of the cultus itself. So that's not how they gained people. They gained people by some kind of very, very, very convincing arguments about the state of being human. And I know and the atheists can't do that. You're a kind of interesting club because you all know what you don't believe, but the problem that you really have, oh, whoops, I have to go this way. The problem that you really end up having is what moral or ethical standards do you hold? Why should anybody trust you? Why should anybody think you have credibility? What do you do about sadness? That's the big one. Because remember, the key, one of the most important things about orthodoxy is despair not. And so what do you do about humans feeling despair? This is also, Buddhism takes this on too. Human suffering. And one of the most fascinating things about the Buddhists is that when Buddhist monks, they do psychological studies on Buddhist monks, their training methods of concentrating the mind and things like that, they are much, much better at attaining a natural state of happiness and really contentedness. Even though they're not in the best of conditions. So how do you make people turn on the happy switch in their brain? And really, when you have been trained in some way in kind of like internal alchemy or Buddhist meditation, or I've been very fortunate in being that I was trained in reciting the rosary, and it was back when they made you do it. We're going to go over to the church, kids, and we're going to be there, and we're going to do the rosary. And so I was very fortunate in that I learned how to sit and concentrate my mind in a way that there's no merit. Like as Bodhidharma says, there's no merit. That's the famous saying. That's what he said to the emperor of China. He said, I've done all these things for Buddhism. What, blah, blah, blah. Tell me about my karma. There is no merit. And then from there, he goes, who am I even speaking to? And he goes, I don't know. and this is like the most profound truth of Zen Buddhism. Like, I don't know. Like, they, like, straight up. I mean, really, like, when you could ask, like, any Roshi, that's kind of one of the most famous sayings in Zen Buddhism. I don't know. There's no merit. I don't know. So you do nothing. I don't know. There's no merit. But so how do you make people happy? Well, really, naturally, people usually are happy because they see somebody they like doing well. They see somebody else who's happy, who they feel close to, and they feel happiness. And it's almost like magic. It's the way we're built. It's not magic. It's the miraculous way that humans were created, that we like seeing our children happy. So when destiny is questioning, why have kids, why believe that there's more to life than just what you see, and it's like, well, how do you explain why children make you feel good when they smile at you? Is it going to just be that some neurochemical explanation? Is that enough? Does that even contain the beauty? Would such an explanation contain the beauty? No. There's something, and it's because of also then a concept that is that we don't use the word correctly, but that it's dignitas. So a cat cleaning itself with its tongue is natural to a cat. humans being kind to their children such that they invest everything into them. And the prodigal son is the key story that usually is cited on this, or the good father is the way it's put. That's the way of humans. That is our dignitas. That's how you know it is humane, is because it's good. And so that you can't replace that. The atheists can't replace this. It took a long time for all this to develop. So yeah, it was just some things I was thinking about. I made a couple of versions of this, and this time I was like, no. I need a coffee, need to take an afternoon walkie, and really think this one through. It's not that he was really wrong. That was the thing, is I was like, no, we're past all that. It's just that he's at an age that it's like, no, it's going to take you a while to study a subject like this and know why your world is the way it is because of the Christian religion. Like, everything good that you have, really, but you don't know it. Because you don't understand what was there before, apparently, in any kind of really stark terms, where people are kind of super cray-cray and believed cray-cray things, all really cray-cray things, and you never knew what cray-cray shit people believed until you ran into it headlong. Peace.